man. I do what I
Because
do.
it was such a despicable process. Breeding farms. So let's talk numbers. In 1808, the transatlantic slave trade was officially banned. And at the time, according to the US Census data, there was approximately 400,000 enslaved people of African descent in this country. So how did it happen? 52 years later, in 1860, just before the Civil War, the number went to 4 million. That's not normal. Unless you take into account slavery ended, but breeding farms went into overdrive. See, that exponential growth didn't happen by accident. It wasn't natural population increase alone. It wasn't because Africans were still being imported in high numbers, although illegal trafficking did persist. And that is precisely what the restorative justice executive order that I wrote and authored, that I've sent to Donald Trump, addresses. But more importantly, back to the point, the increase in population was a result of systematic state-sanctioned breeding farms. Yes, breeding farms. Human beings were forced to reproduce like livestock. This wasn't hidden. It was part of the plantation economy. And it is what has led, or should I say, it was led by some of the most revered figures in American history. Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, operated one of the largest breeding farms in Virginia. It was mechanized, it was calculated, it was cold-blooded. So, and I might have the name wrong, but I know it was many of our founding fathers. But bottom line is, when I talk about why so many African Americans exist today, it's not just because of forced migration. It's because the country manufactured black bodies for labor. And here's the other truth many people don't want to face. The reason your skin is lighter, the reason your hair is a different texture, the reason your features may not resemble those of our sub-Saharan West African ancestors isn't because of some mythical Cherokee grandmother. It's because your ancestors, like mine, were sexually assaulted repeatedly over generations. It's not romantic, it's horrific, but it's real. And I'm gonna tell you the truth. And for many of us, claiming Native American ancestry has become a form of cultural disassociation, a way of escaping the trauma that comes with fully embracing the legacy of slavery. It's easier to say I'm part Indian than to say my great-great-grandmother was raped by a white slave owner. But truth matters, and healing starts with honesty. And let's be clear, according to numerous genetic studies, the average African American has about 22% European DNA. That didn't come from immigration. That came from generational sexual violence. So when we invent these myths about being native, when we replace our actual ancestry with feel-good fantasies, what we really are doing is running away from history. And I get it. It's painful. But denial doesn't bring justice. Only truth does. Only reckoning with the facts gives us the foundation to demand real reparations, not symbolic pity. So my message is this: know who you are, know where you come from, and stop letting YouTube mystics and social media grifters convince you to trade in your real history for a fictional history just because it hurts less. See, because if you don't face the truth, you'll never hold the right people accountable, and you'll never be made whole. Now, for those of you who are already on board, all my people who want their reparations, type reparations in the chat room. For those of you who are already on board, even for those of you who might not, who might need a little bit more convincing, let's talk. We all know that in 1619, the first enslaved Africans were brought to what would become the United States. In 2019, we quietly crossed the 400-year mark. But for centuries of generational suffering and forced labor, racial terrorism, and systematic exclusion, we crossed that mark. That was supposed to be a moment of reflection, of healing. And yes, some African nations like Ghana extended symbolic gestures, and they invited us to the year of return home. Remember that? But let's be honest. Many of you tried to go home and you found yourselves buried in bureaucracy. You had to pay $400 for a visa. You had to fill out all this paperwork and you dealt with all these empty gestures. And if I didn't know any better, I'd say some of these countries didn't really want us there in the first place. So why is it so hard for foundational Black Americans to reconnect with Africa? Because, see, the truth be told, many people on the continent don't know how we got here. They don't study the transatlantic slave trade. They don't give a damn about the transatlantic slave trade. It's not central to their national history. Many don't know that we were ripped away from their shores. And here's the kicker. They don't care and they don't want to know, because if they did, they'd have to face their culpability in it. From the sub-Saharan African slave trade, where Blacks, Africans were sent east, to the transatlantic slave trade, where we had to cross the Ethiopian Sea, or the Atlantic Ocean. Now, of course, you have some educated Africans, they do know. And many of their leaders have even issued apologies, but apologies without policy, without open arms, without legal acknowledgement are just words. There's been no pathway to citizenship. There's no land return, no reparative measures for any real substance. So let me state this plainly. They have not welcomed us like long lost brothers and sisters. In fact, many reports from foundational Black Americans who've traveled or moved to Africa say that they were exploited financially, emotionally, and culturally. You over there crying and begging on your knees and happy to be back home, and they trying to get you for $1. They trying to sell you land that's not even yours. And that right there is why we've begun to delineate ourselves. We're not African Americans in the sense of recent immigrants. We're foundational Black Americans. We're descendants of those who built this country, who bled for it in every major war, who never left. We have a distinct lineage and a unique culture and a separate political reality. In 1965, the Immigration Act opened the doors for Black immigrants from the Caribbean and Africa. And while we don't resent their presence, let's not confuse their experience with ours. They are African Americans by paperwork, okay? We are African Americans by blood, by toil, by sacrifice, and by betrayal. So when people say don't sue Africa, that's our family, I say this: family doesn't sell you into slavery. Family doesn't forget about you after they've sold you into slavery. Family doesn't block your return with red tape and bureaucratic walls. If Africa is our mother, then she's been a neglectful, abusive mother. She sold her children for alcohol, drugs, for mirrors, and for money. And when we were taken, she never came looking for us. And since we're talking about Africa, there's an African proverb that says the child who is not embraced by the village or doesn't feel the warmth of the village will turn around and burn it to the ground so he can feel that warmth. And I'm going to keep showing the world what Black
you were tuned in to one of the best Black men advocated podcasts on YouTube. Show some love for the one and only Black professional who keep it real.
And be super mad.
You would tune in to Dennis podcast. Keep it moving, mama's favorite of the lovely ladies. All these YouTube men dressed for the occasion, even though he on the internet. Intellect, beat you up in court and probably fist to fist. Been around the world, high value. Girl, you can't relate it. Been debated, Godfather endorsed, scared. Kevin said it. Independent Black businessman, yeah, he hood related. Probably wouldn't know a big bass. Appreciate it. Talk to me and I talk back. He can litigate it. Walk with me as we talk facts. He opinionated, staying true crew. He not only talking, checking court dockets. Only YouTuber putting real money in my pockets. LA back to Houston, taking off. Some Houston Rockets, Big O in the middle. I'm Elijah Wan, let's get it poppin'. Championships, we want championships. Keep the manuscript, loyalty and brotherhood. Watch out who you're hanging with. Hit that subscribe button. Yeah, y'all know what it is. DennisSpurling podcast. One of the realest. One of the realest in the game. Let's get to it. All my lovely ladies, y'all know what it is. Show some love. Yeah, hit that like button. Subscribe right now. On our way to 100,000. Let's get it. You would tune in to the one, if not the best, on these YouTube streets. We call him DennisSpurling. You sit back and hate watch, clocking everything he do and say, but you yelling DennisSpurling. Show some love, ain't enough going round for a black man putting it down. We talking DennisSpurling. Taking over 2025, ain't no lies. Pull up, tell all of your guys we watching DennisSpurling. You tune in to the one, if not the best, on these YouTube streets. We call him DennisSpurling. You sit back and hate watch, clocking everything he do and say, but you yelling DennisSpurling. Show some love, ain't enough going round for a black man putting it down. We talking DennisSpurling. Taking over 2025, ain't no lies. Pull up, tell all of your guys we watching DennisSpurling.
This is Uncle D, and as I always said this time, I'm out.
Almost to 10,000 followers. I want to say thank you to you guys. You know, I know God has something in store for me, and I'm going to continue to say yes.
Smooth operator. Come on, everybody. Smooth operator. Smooth operator. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.